G'day punters, welcome to another episode of the Footy Form Guide podcast. Looking a little differently today. Harro's coming to us from Casa de Harris, down on the pen, mates. This is what happens in winter, Harro. Sometimes the family gets sick and you just got to get hands on the deck and look after them. And mate, you're coming to us from the homestead as opposed from the studio today. So just a little peek behind the curtain. How are you?
Yeah, mate. I don't know. For those of you with families out there, like, does it get any tougher? I've had for the last sort of week, the 3 kids and the wife, all with influenza A. It's been an absolute nightmare. And yet, and somehow, and what happens with us blokes? So we just got some sort of superpower. We don't get sick because, I'm cherry ripe. So it's yeah, it's interesting, but I couldn't drag my little fella Harvey down to the office today. He's got to stay in bed, so I'm coming from
Fair
home.
enough.
And yeah, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Harro, as I've learned in my house, if I'm sick, no one there cares. So it's better off not even claiming to be sick at any point. You just got to get on with it. But, mate, look, we'll get stuck straight in to the show as we like to do. We'll start where we always start with the good and bad of the weekend gone by. I've only got a couple more weeks of this before finals. The season has absolutely flown. But what were our highlights on the punt from the weekend, mate?
Well, mate, I sort of stuck my neck out and I made the Blue Bag as the best bet. And I've put the Blue Bag as beanie on this week because they got the job done for us. So the lid is off. But I do put myself under a little bit of pressure when I make the Blues the best bet. I don't do it often because we do get a little bit of feedback, don't we, if things go wrong.
Yeah.
So, but no, that was excellent. They got the job done, the Baggers, and okay, it helped our bet a little bit, but I don't think Naz going down probably influenced the overall result. But that was a bit bad to see. I would have rather have seen Carlton beat the Saints with Naz playing a full game. Anyway, it is what it is. We'll take it. I do remember we did back Carlton the other week, and Harry Mackay went down very early. So sometimes it goes one way or the other.
Yep.
Other results that I enjoyed was the Cats. They were essentially our second best bet last week, weren't they?
Yep.
And they got the job done with the last kick of the day. Special mention to my boy, Tanner Bruhn.
You've been all over, like this year. There's been good, bad, indifferent, but I feel like whether we're on him or not, he's been mentioned in just about every pod. So, but he got the job done. That was a nice watch from the Catters to do that for us. That was good.
Yeah, and so I've been pretty critical of Tanner Bruhn this season, and he snuck that one in by about 1 millimetre. I was waiting for him to go to the arc and overturn it. It was so tight, but that was good. North over the Dogs, mate, was another one I really enjoyed. Felt pretty vindicated with the read on that one. Couple of lowlights. Didn't actually get to watch it. The only game I didn't watch for the round was the Hawks, the Lions, but it was never a bet we were going to have a big go at. But the Hawks, we did tip them up to beat the Lions, and they couldn't get anywhere near them. And then the Crows only beating the Tigers by 2 points at home with everything to play for. That was another one we got wrong as well, mate.
Yep. All right, mate. Well, we'll get stuck in. We've got some questions from punters. We've got a few there that we'll cover. Before we do that, I'm bringing the selection table out this week, and we've just got a couple in terms of in and out. Look, in for me is just the fact that the wild card weekend now. Don't get me wrong. If we didn't have the wild card, the battle for the 8 would actually be more exciting. So the wild card's kind of a bit irrelevant in terms of who's going to be in there. But Harro, there is a chance that 100,000 people are going to be at the MCG to watch Carlton v Collingwood on a round that is usually a bye. Because there is every chance now with the 2 games they've got each remaining that they are going to finish 8th and 9th and play in the wild card, which anybody that likes footy, it's just the best scenario for this wild card weekend. I can't think of it. Maybe if there was a showdown somehow or something like that, but we're talking about just about the best scenario. Collingwood they just don't put in bad performances. They're always there. They always show up versus Carlton, who have got the equal best record since Fraser has taken over in the comp. They've been 10-2. It sets up beautifully. Hopefully you both finish off the season somewhat nicely. I don't want Collingwood finish off too nicely because we got them this week. But that would be incredible. Friday night wildcard weekend. I can't wait for that. So that's a massive tick for me, Harro. And let me, as a Blues fan, forgetting anything else, like that has to be super exciting.
Yeah, and also, you got to put your conspiracy theory hat on for a second and go, the AFL are going to do everything in their power to try and make it happen, aren't they?
Yeah.
They got so much to gain out of it basically makes their whole decision to have the wildcard round kind of vindicated if they get Carlton, Collingwood. Plus, they probably keep the revenue from finals that are at the G, I'm guessing. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure clubs don't own them, the AFL do. So, that's a win.
They just got so much to gain out of getting a Carlton Collingwood final. And I think for it to happen, Carlton probably have to beat the Doggies this week to make it realistic, I think. So anyway, we'll work that out later. But
if Carlton and I reckon you'll beat Freo. I can't imagine Freo bringing a full strength side over, mate, to Marvel.
Well,
there's no benefit.
Even if they do, we'll probably flog them.
He's up and about. I'll tell you this though. In terms of in terms of that round as well, there's a chance Adelaide Doggies, Adelaide Oval, which is another sellout. So if that's a huge fixture. We were staring down the barrel of maybe Dogs, Collingwood, St Kilda, Melbourne. Like there could be decent matchups, but you're just not going to get the crowds, and it's not going to be the same. This is huge. Melbourne too good for the wild card now, mate. They are absolutely fine. And out for me, Harro, is Footy Form guide trying to break news or get involved in news. Harro, I enjoyed this week when you went at the Cats hard, and just want to be clear, everyone probably thought I did. I'm a Hawthorn fan, but I think you've gone past me in your Cats hatred. I genuinely, I actually haven't given a shit about this whole story because I'm like, it's such a debacle. I don't want to get involved. I just felt bad for the player in the Geelong scandal. But what I laughed my ass off is someone, and I thought the same thing when I read it a day ago. You've tweeted and to make a point, you've quote tweeted John Ralph. That's when we know things are going bad, mate. If we are relying on a Johnny Ralph tweet. So I actually laughed my ass on that. And the person that called you out, I'm like, mate, I was on the same page. But look, I found that quite funny. In what has been, the whole thing's been a bit shit and a shit story, and it's been a debacle. So it's come full circle on the end of it before here. I was actually able to have a chuckle at part of it. I just hope something can work out and Jake Cole-Jackson can actually play footy again and they can work through all of this. That's the only thing that really matters, and play footy fully insured with the full support of the AFL and the AFLPA. That's all I give a shit about. They'll work out the sanctions. No, and the other thing is, Harry, no club is... Every club's big enough to survive any sanction anyway. So kind of, unless you, like the Essendon thing was a big one, but that's a different beast. But that's sort of the only example. And you look over the NRL, they stripped the Storm of premierships and they still continued and went on with it. So clubs are big enough. So it doesn't matter what the sanction is. So just get it done, get it out of the way before finals. And let's focus on Carlton Collingwood, Friday night wildcard, MCG. And that's all that matters.
So you just want it swept under the carpet. You may as well go and get a job at AFL House for you.
No, I don't want it swept under the carpet. I just want them to get it done quickly.
Yeah,
and make sure it's looked after. I just want it done quickly.
Carro had a good call on it, I thought, which came across my feed, and it was basically that the clubs are just sick of the preferential treatment that Geelong have been getting for years now. And I think with this sort of stuff, you start out as a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and then by the time you get three years down the track.
Now, I just look at social. The majority are saying enough's enough now, and whether but the thing is, if that's my club, I'd be pretty disappointed anyway, because that's I mean, we really care about. I don't care about the administrators at my club. I care about the players.
Yeah. The first time I became aware of all this stuff, it was actually Richmond fans who were pointing it out to me, because the first instance...
I fucking hate him, mate.
Oh, mate. The first instance of anything kind of intertwined between decisions being made in the AFL that could potentially be helping Geelong was when I think it was Hocking went from working at Geelong to working at the AFL, and the first thing that they did was introduce the stand rule, and something that Richmond fans say that Geelong had the opportunity to train for months before the rule came in, and it was all engineered to try and stop this Richmond juggernaut. That was the first thing that was a theory that came out. But I think there's a solution to all this, Wally, and there should be a grace period between working for an AFL club and working for the AFL. You should not be able to just jump straight from clubland straight into a high-ranking position in the AFL or a decision-making position, or go the other way. Because the other thing that happened is when Stephen Hocking left the AFL and he went back to Geelong, well, the first thing that happened after that was this bizarre trade between Geelong and the Gold Coast, where not only did they get Jack Bowes, but they picked up, I think, pick number 7 or something as well. And also, Bowes was able to renegotiate his contract. So it wasn't like Geelong were taking on the horrible contract that Gold Coast had.
Yeah.
And so Hocking would have been, having worked at the AFL, fully aware of all of the contracts of all the players in the other clubs. And so Geelong were in the prime position to go and pick that one off. Anyway, the idea is just you can't go from working at clubland to the AFL within 1 year. It has to be a grace period.
I reckon a grace period of going into the media and seeing things differently, because I'll tell you who I'd love to have working for the AFL, and I wouldn't be alone here, because you hear him talk, is I would love, and funnily enough, it's another Geelong person, but Jimmy Bartel and the way he sees the game and the way he talks about the game with such logic. Perfect example of someone, he was at that club, but he's had enough time out of it. He watches so much, he consumes so much. He was an incredible player and competitor. Someone like that I would love to see, ironically, they're Geelong as well, but in a role, because you just see they give them more of a chance to go into I think that you get to see the game under a different lens in the media. And if you're good at your media role, you watch so much football. And I would say you watch more football than any administrators do, because they're so focused on their own club, or they're focused on the job as a whole. Mate,
I don't mind people going into the media straight after footy, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Go to the media and then go spend some time in the media, then go take a role. Like that. Anyway, we could go on for ages. I'm done with it. They need to get it fixed before finals. They really, really do. Okay. Couple of questions from punters. Yab asked us about resting players mid-game in the last couple of rounds and how we navigate it. Look, how do you try and work to it? Do you just avoid some teams altogether? Is there any strategy around this, or is it just it's pretty hard to predict specific players on every team. Is it more of just an overarching approach to a team?
Well, I'll tell you what, it probably gives you a good reason, and I don't think you need much more of a reason to do this anyway. But it reinforces the idea that betting singles should make up the vast majority of your bets. I've always been a big proponent, like the singles are what keep you fed. And then like the multis are something you can have later, because say you have 5 players in a bet, right, and one of them gets rested, well, it kills your whole bet. But if you've got 5 players in a single, one of them gets rested, it might cost you 1 bet, but your 4 other bets are still sweet. And so that's probably just avoiding having everything in multis is probably your best way around it. And then And then just looking at the clubs who have got a bit of a history of it, obviously we saw it on the weekend with Heaney. He got rested, for the last 20 minutes of the game when he was on, I think, 24. So that's a really good example, probably one that Yab's picked up on there. So, yes, it's a big factor now. And, also maybe you could focus on guys who are, unlikely to get rested. Like, Geelong might be likely to give a Tom Stewart a bit of a rest, but they're probably not going to give Tanner Bloom an extra rest, are they? That type of thing. Worth considering, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. We got asked about with the Hall of Fame entries now, do we want a Hall of Shame? Mate, in this climate, I'd be fucking cancelled, I reckon, if you bagged a player for missing a bet. So I think we'll leave the Hall of Shame alone. The other thing is, to be honest, there's enough negativity going on in the football landscape. Let's keep it positive. Yeah. So I'm taking the break this week. There's a Hall of Fame. If one doesn't present himself this week, I'm going back even further to the archives for one next week, Harris. So stay tuned for that. Our man Mickey Johnson, it's always great. He's always talking. He just wanted to know best and worst teams punting wise this year at Harrow. I think that Port Adelaide unders was one of our biggest of the year. Has there been any others?
The Sydney Swans were very good to us earlier, weren't they? I think we've had them in maybe 4 best bets that have all got up. So definitely early the Swannies. Later, as you said, Port, Brisbane overs as well has been pretty good, although that missed on the weekend.
I'll tell you right now,
West Coast,
Harrow, we've missed the Hawks most times we've gotten around them. So they've been okay with some other betting, but when we've actually lined them up as our best, it hasn't been great.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Just quickly. Yeah, no, West Coast. So I think they've been all right to us as well. And West Coast, I haven't looked at the line ladder recently, but they were leading the line ladder as well. North Melbourne as well. We've picked North Melbourne out playing at Marvel. North at Marvel has been a good one. On the flip side, we've definitely tipped up a few Collingwood. We've definitely tipped Collingwood up a few times and they've rolled us. So I'd probably say they have been our biggest probably nemesis or whatnot on the punt this year. Yeah. And that's probably where I'd go.
I think earlier, before we knew the wheels had come off, I reckon Richmond haven't really been great to us either and have cost us the other way a couple of times. Okay. Anyway, all good, mate. Let's get into the footy for this weekend. As I said, there's 2 rounds to go before wildcard and finals. As I always say, Harro, very, very important to remember, if you haven't checked out our Discord, check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff goes on there. Competitions, we had a good competition winner last week. You check out what those are there. We've got another pod that goes out on a Friday morning post teams. There's suggested bets. The community gets involved. The stuff I love seeing is when people are like at the ground and they go, this player's warming up with the defenders and things like that. And you're seeing those late moves and all that. It's a huge amount of value in there for punters to be able to see. All you got to do, go into our X page, go into our Insta page. The instructions of how you do it are there. It's really easy. It should be easier because you got to deal with Patreon and Discord, I'll be honest, but it's once you do it, it's all very easy. So do that. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you are subscribing, share it with your friends. Obviously all helps. All right, we're going to get stuck in Fremantle, Adelaide. Now, the first 3 favourites of the round are all $1.29 exactly, and all the lines are 22.5. Harrow, there you go. Freo, Adelaide. Freo's $1.29. Adelaide's $3.66. As I said, the line is 22.5. Adelaide not overly impressive, but the conditions were shocking. Richmond actually turned up. Probably could have almost got the win, but the 2 bizarre coaching moves to just Rankin and Dawson were not taken care of when they could have been. I don't know what happened there, but that one was won in the coach's box, not on the field, which is you can't. A lot of Richmond's issues have stemmed from their list, but I think they had the opportunity to win that one. So Adelaide now travelling out of Perth. Freo will want to win this one. It's their last home game for the regular season. Yeah, I don't know how much I want to be involved in the betting on it, just because the unpredictability of Adelaide at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. Probably every game, Wally, we're going to talk a little bit about motivation coming into the last 2 rounds, and so just using sort of that as a starting point, you'd have to give the Crows the big motivational edge in this one. It's just that the fact that they can finish anywhere from 3rd to 8th, so the ramifications for them are a lot higher than Freo, who realistically. A worst case scenario, they could finish 2nd by losing this and to the Blues and the Swans, making up 10% on them. So a lot needs to change for Freo to just drop to 2nd. And then even if they did drop to 2nd, it doesn't even mean that they're not going to get their preferred opponent. So
they get Hawthorn instead of probably Brisbane.
Yeah.
Which would you rather?
I know. So automatically rule out any kind of bet on Freo, just based purely on motivation. And also, if they wanted to be really clever, Freo, I don't think the gamesmanship goes this far. But say this was your life was on the line, you're going to do everything you can to try and get yourself the premiership. You'd leave the Crows alive, wouldn't you? Like you'd leave them. You'd want them trying to fight their way into fourth.
Yeah.
And so you would probably show absolutely zero cards to them. You'd lose, and you hope that they would sneak into fourth and you get them because they're easily the most beatable side out of all of the kind of contenders. Anyway, I don't think it goes that far. So the question really comes down to, do you want to back the Crows getting a 22.5 start or at $3.65? I'm not sure I do, because their form stinks. And if Freo might just decide we're tuning up for finals, we're just going to turn up for these last two games anyway. So I'm probably staying out of that. The total points is 170.5. The last 7 times these two coaches have met, 6 of them have gone under 170. So although Freo are playing a higher scoring brand now, Adelaide are actually playing very defensively. And so I probably lean to the under in this one. Outside of that, this is the team that rates 18th for conceding possessions playing the team that concedes 17. So you don't get a tougher matchup in terms of trying to find disposal bets. And the unders bets, they're very sensitive, these types of things. Like you can find them yourself and back them, but like when I tip up a disposal under, it just gets hit so hard. And then actually the bookies are just so sensitive. Anything you tip up that's an unders bet just gets moved immediately. And so it's a little bit tricky tipping up these unders type lines. So, the idea is probably for the punters, if you can find it yourself and get on first, you're gonna probably do better.
Yeah.
I have found a few. So look, I'm going to put it this way: wingers struggle. Both of these two sides. So work out who the wingers are, and also the uncontested possession players. So the players who go and get the bulk of their possessions uncontested, they're likely to do poorly in this game. And so rather than me just reading the names out and the odds getting just crunched straight away and nobody gets on, I'd rather just give a few little hints and then maybe a few more people will be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Rankin and Dawson are both set really low though, and they're not the type of player who go super low in these types of contests. And we've seen with Dawson, like the Crows will just move him around and get him in the position wherever they think the footy can be more often than not. And so Freo really unlikely to be tagging, given that they're mostly, focusing on themselves, and they haven't generally tagged a lot anyway. I think they may have used Johnson maybe once or twice, but those two guys in hot form, their lines are actually quite low at 23.5. That's okay. One other one here, Wally. We have to think back about a month when Darcy Fogarty last played. So he's coming off a 3-game holiday with no injury. So he should be absolutely cherry ripe. And he was playing that disconnected full forward role. Before he went out, his last 4 games, he kicked 5, 4, 2, and 4. Now he's $2.10 to kick 2, and he's $11 to kick 4, which is something he'd done in 3 of his last 4 games. So there's a little goal kicker bet for the punters as well.
Love that, Harro. Very, very good. All right, now, that's our Friday night game. Obviously, there's no Thursday night footy this week, so we head to the Saturday, and the first game on the Saturday is Richmond St Kilda. Tiggs, 364, St Kilda $1.29, Lions 22.5. I don't know what anyone's paying for here. Richmond probably now miss out on the spoon, but also miss out on pick 1. it would take a miracle now for St Kilda to get into the 10. So you talk about motivation. I mean, St Kilda's still got some, but like it'd take it really hard for them to make the 10, right?
Nah, I wouldn't say it's impossible. Like Carlton would need to lose to the Bulldogs and Freo. And at the time that St Kilda play this one, they won't know the result of Carlton Bulldogs. They're probably going to presume Carlton will lose to Freo. And then St Kilda just need to win their last 2 games. So I would expect St Kilda will still be, fairly motivated. At least, I think they will be. So, and Richmond, obviously, their ladder position's pretty unlikely to change. So, and they look like they're trying, obviously, at the moment. They're kind of, unless the Bombers can pull off a win, which is very unlikely.
Harro, I was trying to get you to give the kiss of death to the baggers and go, oh yeah, they're no chance. Saints are no chance. But you didn't fall for it. Very good, Harro. Yeah. So obviously there is still some motivation for St Kilda.
Yeah.
But yeah, not really for Richmond, as we know.
No. So we look outside of that, and I think my first protocol here is this is MCG daytime, sort of getting into it's August, I know, but you're getting these spring-like days now a little bit, and so I look at the higher scoring for this one, Wally, and we know Richmond. I know that their game went super low on the weekend, but you've got to consider the opponent and the conditions. All right, and so I think the over 166.5 here, Wally, is a play. I think that in the perfect conditions with Richmond, definitely having said publicly that they're working on trying to score a bit more, I think that that's a go. And then also you look at it from the St Kilda side of it, like they've had the odd game go under this, but it's really been against opponents or in conditions that don't really suit. The vast majority of their games are over this. If you just go back, I'll just do it quickly on the run here. Since round 10, 3, 5, 6, 7. So they've had 10 games since round 10 and 3 under. So, I think it's a pretty strong trend. St Kilda aren't that Ross Lyon's not that sort of really dour type anymore. And you look at the games that went under in that since round 10, it was Port. Well, that's no surprise, is it? North Melbourne, who we know were trying to go defensive after they got belted. And the Western Bulldogs, who have been one of the really low-scoring clubs this year. So, I like the over total points in this one, Wally. And you do get later in the season as well these overs games where, especially sides, the pressure's off basically.
Harro, 160s, right? In mid 160s isn't a high line. Is this one you consider maybe a higher line as well because you're going to get a good price for a 180, 190?
Yeah, I think it's feasible, definitely. So, and then looking outside of that, so some disposal bets, Wally, which our punters love.
Yep.
We saw on the weekend that, and we've talked about it already, that Richmond don't restrict the gun players. It's more the mediocre or middle range players who can often go a little bit sort of towards their par. But also, like just in the last 5 rounds, Richmond are still conceding AFL number 3 disposals. So they're still conceding high, even with a low game on the weekend, which I think was more about conditions. And then if you look at the 4, so who's gathering highest disposals? Well, St Kilda are gathering the 3rd most disposals. It should be a really good game for St Kilda disposals. There's a few here, mate. Brad Hill, he looks like a guy that they're just going to be trying to get the footy in his hands as often as possible. And his line's 28.5 now. He's over that in 5 of his last 7 games. Anyway, including, a 37, a 39, a 42. So he's got the ability to go really high. This guy would had great success backing him, Wally, and he'd be in the mould of considered a gun, I think, now, and it's Max Hall.
Yeah.
And his line's up a little bit, but he's coming off 30 against the Blues, and his line's 25.5, playing the Tigers. He got over this last time against the Tigers. Feel like that's a pretty good area to be. This guy, mate, he's actually struggled a little bit recently, and I just want to put it out there for the punters that he maybe not quite right since doing his ankle. It's Hugo Garcia, so perhaps he's one you want to leave alone. But I saw this guy get a big bump on the weekend when Naz went out of the game. He ended up with the 46% CBAs, which is up on his norm, and his line's 22.5. And this guy's a gun. His name is Darcy Wilson. Now he's over 22.5 in 6 of his last 7 games, regardless, and not considering the opponent. So I think there's a few good ones there. Now on the Richmond side of things. Obviously, at Carlton last week, we played some guys like Florent, Billy Wilson, these types for Carlton. Shearer off the half-back line. Now Jaden Short's line, he's had a quiet few weeks, Wally, but his line's now down to 20.5, and he's over that 13 of 19 this year. So long as he hasn't had a role change. Looking at his heat map here, so he's still got the role. He's just had actually a run of opponents that concede really low to his position. So if you look at it, he's had Adelaide, West Coast, Hawthorn, and Carlton where he's gone under in the last 5 weeks. Now, if I go to the defensive ball user here and tell you who the bottom sides are for defensive ball user, Carlton, Hawthorn, and then you go skip one, you get the Crows. So he's had 3 of the 4 bottom conceding to his position, and so it's no wonder he's had and even West Coast are in the they're in the bottom 8 for that as well. So he's just had a bit of a run of tough opponents, and now he gets a really good opponent for his position.
Right.
So I think Jaden Short to have a bit of a bounce back game here is well and truly on the cards, mate. And I think we'll leave it there.
Great. All right, we'll go to North Melbourne v Geelong. North 362, Geelong again, $1.29, lines 22.5. If it was at the Cattery, the line would probably have an extra 3 goals on it. But obviously this one's under the lid.
Yep. Yeah. And so obviously motivation-wise, Wally, we can start out with that. North, they can't make it, I'm going to say, because even if Carlton and St Kilda stayed on 44 points or under 44 points, so North could they could draw level with them, but they'd also have to break up a shit heap of percentage.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say, they can't make it. But they knew that coming into last week, and they still beat the Doggies. So they'll be trying, and pressure off them a little bit as well. Cats, on the other hand, well, all the Cats need is for Melbourne or Adelaide or even Brisbane to lose one of their last 3 games, and they'll jump into 6 because they've got strong percentage.
And there's still a chance at the top 4 as well, which is the ultimate. That's what you really want. So there's a lot of motivation for Geelong.
Yes. So, I mean, you look at that $1.29. You don't take $1.29 shots all the time. And perhaps, North at Marvel, you maybe don't want to take it. But, it's something that we could have a bit of a multi with a few of these teams, Wally, with the high
motivation multi. We've done it before, Harro. It usually comes off.
Yes, and we're getting some odds there too. So, so straight up, okay, well, I'm not too sure if we want to get involved at the 22.5. Just North, such a strong record at Marvel this year. Cats don't go there a lot, and when they do, they don't really love it. But I do like, we get Marvel. It's normally a decent, provides decent scoring, and I think North have gone away from the idea of being, super defensive. As we saw against the Doggies, mate, it's like 177 in a Doggies game is actually high for them. And North actually were able to kick reasonably straight compared to the week before. So, and I spoke about it, the previous weeks for North, the thing that had been holding back the scoring was really just the goal kicking. And so the actual scoring shots have been high. Like it was 182 points against the Hawks, but like with over 50 scoring shots. So, yeah, and look, even on form, they've run Hawthorn to 16 points down at UTAS. Probably got Hawthorn ranked ahead of Geelong. So I'm not involved there, but I am involved. I'm happy to get involved in the over 180. I think that, and we know Geelong, they're always looking to score. They play a really good brand in terms of that sort of thing. So happy to back that. And then, yeah, as we do, mate, we'll have to take a look at a few player angles. Bailey Smith's line is now down at 28.5, so there must be a heavy chance of a tag in that. So there is like Pino Sullivan there or Jyson. And you look at last time that they played the Roos, Pino Sullivan tagged him and kept him to 26 disposals. So that kind of explains why Baz's line is down at 28.5. If he didn't get tagged, he's over 28.5, 15 out of 20 games. So shout out to this guy, mate. He had an absolute blinder on the weekend. It's Luke Davies Jr. We've been a little bit critical of him. He probably hasn't had the best season, has he? But the game he played on the weekend was sensational. It's just whether we think now. So he's obviously in good form. He's had 27 against the Hawks, 31 against the Doggies. It's just whether he maybe gets that Mullen tag. It'll probably be him or Sheasel, but I'm going to probably lean to LDU after playing a game like that on the weekend. So outside of that, I'm looking at. So I had a couple of picks out there, mate. Brian Myers, mate. So I don't know what's going on with him, but he obviously got tagged against the D's, and then he got off to a flyer against the Pies, and then they put someone on him, and then against the Bombers, he was just nowhere. So I'm not too sure what's going on with him. I think he might have copped a bit of a knock or an injury, so watch out for him. Simpkin, we mentioned that he's been booted out of the midfield last week by Wardlaw coming back, and we did tip up his unders, and he did have 17, and his line's still at 20. So he could be a guy that you look to go under. Now, this is an interesting one, Wally. For the first 3 quarters of the season, North were close to the bottom in conceding possessions to defend the ball user. If you isolate the last 5 rounds, obviously North have changed a few things because they're now conceding number 1 to defend the ball user. So and I'll just go through a few of them. Jarman Impey 30, Brad Hill 34, Jake Bowie 29, Josh Dacos 33. So there's a pretty strong trend now that North are not defending those type of guys. So who would that be for the Cats? Is it a Lawson Humphreys, whose line is 19.5? He got 23 last week. So that's a guy you could definitely consider from the Cats' point of view.
Okay, maybe Humphreys. All right, no worries. Okay, mate, we'll move on now to Brisbane v Gold Coast. Brisbane's $1.18, Gold Coast $4.95, 32.5 point line. Well, Brisbane's paying for everything. Gold Coast season is cooked. But they don't own their pick. So their life just gets shitter. Let's be honest. It's just garbage. I know they had the win on the weekend, but doesn't just things are not good up there.
Yeah. So Brizzy, actually percentage is still a big factor for Brisbane, isn't it? Because they could end up on equal points with either Adelaide or Geelong, who are both.
I think Geelong's 3 points ahead, percentage points ahead, and Adelaide and them are like 0.2 apart. So it's a kick. So it is very important.
Yeah. And so I feel like, obviously half the trick with Brisbane is working out if they're going to turn up properly or not. you would have to say in a game like this that they're going to be turning up, aren't they? There's really no excuses why not. Now, I think Gold Coast have got about the weakest defence we've seen in some time. And so this could be a cricket score. And so I like the over one, I think it was 185.5. I'm not sure if it's moved. Let me double check.
It's 188.5 currently.
Okay, so it's up a couple. So yeah, I still like it over. I rarely tip up these lines over on the getting up to 190, but I just struggle to see, like with the way that Gold Coast defend, that this won't be basically a goal fest. And Brisbane at the moment, if you look at it, in the last 5 rounds, they're averaging 16.6 goals a game. AFL number 1, they're averaging 111 points per game. And then if you look at the against, Wally, and this is with Gold Coast playing in a wet one. Over the last 5 rounds, Gold Coast are averaging 3rd in the comp in terms of scores conceded at 100. Only like Essendon and Port are conceding more. And you got to think, Port just had a huge score kicks against them on the weekend. So, and Gold Coast played in one on the wet. So I think this is just going to be a goal fest, and Brisbane are going to run all over them basically. And I don't think that the line is enough. I think it'll be a bigger win than 32 points for Brisbane basically. So happy with the overs and play Brisbane, and then in a game like this, you've probably got to consider the goal kickers as well. And just looking at
so Loman, Cameron, Morris they've been the ones damaging.
Yeah. So
the scoreboard.
So Logan Morris, mate, if you backed him to kick 3, you're getting over $2 for that. Now he's done that in over 50% of his games so far this season. And look, it'd be nice to see Sam Collins miss again too. If he's out, that even weakens the Gold Coast defence even more. But look, go through them. Like Loman's just on absolute fire, right? So him to kick 3, he's $2.65. Well, he's done that in 5 of his last 6 games, Wally. So there's plenty to like in those sort of areas. Disposals, Wally. Now Brisbane are conceding, just quickly get it back up again. In the last 5 rounds, they're conceding the least disposals in the comp, which looks much more like their profile that they had in the back half of last season when they wanted to win the flag. And so I would be focusing any disposal bets around Brisbane players, certainly, because I think they're going to control the footy most of the night, basically. And so who are we looking at there? Well, Will Ashcroft, his line's 30.5. Well, the lowest he's had in these last 8 games is 30. And so you can't not consider him. And again, we mentioned last week that he gets a bit of a bump with McCluggage going out, and he did. He went from having had 48% CBAs, and then McCluggage goes out and he has 62 and 77, and he flies well over in both of them. So that's a guy I'd definitely be happy to play. And then looking outside of that, Josh Dunkley, mate, he seems to be finding a fair bit more of the footy at the moment, but he's probably going to be head-to-head with Rao, isn't he? And so that'll be interesting. Now, if Dunkley's going to be head-to-head with Rao, we can probably go back to having a bet on Anderson, who needs 25 for his line. And that's a pretty low line for a guy who knows how to find the footy like he does. And he actually doesn't have a bad record against the Lions. He got 25 against them last time anyway. Zach Bailey, he's another one. He needs 21, Wally, and he's over that 7 of his last 10. Again, no McCluggage. He should do plenty of damage. Jared Berry, he's another one who I think is getting back to some good form now. He was the topic of a fair bit of discussion in our Discord on the weekend because people were sort of saying, I think I've had him in a multi or something for 14, and you're like, oh, very, he has missed. I think he'd missed 14 once in his last 108 games or something. He's so consistent, this bloke. But you need him to get 19 in this one. I feel like he's in good form and he'll be able to do that. So there's a few for the punters on this one already.
All right, we've got doubleheader Saturday night. We've got Hawthorn, Collingwood at the G, $1.38 for the Hawks. Collingwood's $3.28, 19.5 points. Collingwood are going to be playing in the wild card where they play. It doesn't really matter. Hawthorn need to win the next 2 games just to ensure they get that top 4 spot. More importantly, they can't be knocked out of 3rd. So I think that a trip to Sydney would be a lot more tempting than a trip to Perth in the first week of the finals, Harro. So Hawthorn have a lot to play for.
Yes, agreed. And just running a quick multi-Walley of these teams that I think have got a lot more motivation. Just the Hawthorn Brisbane Geelong gets you over $2.
Yeah.
You add in Melbourne, who we haven't got to yet, but you're getting up to $2.50 for that. So, yeah, I feel like there's a bit of a contingency play there. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So where do we go? We're looking at the Hawks. Yeah, and as you said, Wally, definitely Collingwood are just locked into their spot, and I feel like Collingwood are playing the long game as well, aren't they? Like they're actually definitely thinking that they want to have a big impact in the finals. We've heard them say it, and they want to try and win the flag, and so they're going to be doing everything aiming towards that. And really, I don't know what they could gain out of trying to put everything into this game. And so we might see them continue to rest their players like De Goey. They could even give Dacos a rest before the end of the season. Given that also his Brownlows, I think that's pretty well sewn up too. So, yeah, looking for Collingwood to potentially play a few little games here, and Hawks with everything to play for. That's where we want to be, pretty simply. Also, Wally, the total points 175.5. Well, Collingwood aren't a low-scoring team anymore, and the Hawks certainly like to score as well. So, I think, I'm more than happy to be with the over 175.5 as well.
Clear conditions on a Saturday night at the G
yeah,
too.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So,
in terms of disposals here, now we've seen the last couple of years Collingwood's allowed a lot of disposal in different areas of the ground. Where do you think we're at with that now? Are we looking at mids? Are we looking at defensive ball users? Are we looking at outside players, Harro?
So looking at it here, Collingwood are actually number 2 to outside mids at the moment.
Yep.
And then inside mids, they're actually in the bottom half of the table, and I think that's because they've now got Ed Allen in there keeping the main guy a bit quiet. He was really good on the weekend.
I like it.
Yeah. And even the defensive ball user, they're only mid-table. So Collingwood are mid-table on most of the positions. And then if you're looking at just overall disposals against, Collingwood are 8th at the moment over the last 5 rounds. If you want to look at it over the whole season, they're actually 4th. So over the course of the whole season, they're still conceding really high disposals, but it looks like if you just isolate the last 5 games, they're looking like more of a mid-table team for conceding disposals. But where they do cough it up is uncontested possessions. So looking at that, 4th against the uncontested possessions. And we know the Hawks, they love an uncontested possession, don't they? So we'll probably be able to look at some of those Hawks players who get a lot of marks. Your D'Ambrosio, your Ginnivan, who had a bad game on the weekend, he'd be wanting to bounce back. Certainly. Actually, a lot of these Hawks players be looking to bounce back after the weekend. So, actually, Ginnivan's still got his 20 possessions on the weekend.
Yeah, because he was good early, dropped off throughout. But
right.
I mean, this feels like one of these ones when teams get named, the sort of thing that we can have another look at and
Yeah. Well,
And
just Ginny
look at some
in
players.
general, he's over 27 of his last 9 games,
Mm.
and his miss was a 19 and a 17. So
Yeah, it's going well.
um, he's going pretty well. I thought for some reason he had a bad game on the weekend, but he didn't. If the Pies don't make heaps of changes, and this guy holds his role, it's Ned Long, who had 25 on the weekend. So it really is going to depend on team changes. Like if Pendles and DeGoey come back, whatnot,
Yeah.
he'll probably get shifted back out, and he's going to go back down to having his 13 to 15. But if he keeps his spot, I'll be happy to back him to have
Yeah.
20. Yeah, so that's probably where we're at.
Yeah.
Could be a good one for goals too, given we think the total points is set a little bit too low. And the Wiz had a bit of a shocker, didn't he, on the weekend?
Yeah, he did. So this is the other thing, though. This is you can back the Wiz with confidence this season overall, but like
Yeah.
we don't know what's going to be happening at the selection table here. I don't think Hawthorn can go in with 2 rucks again. What does that mean? What goes on with the forwards? We just don't know. There's so much with Collingwood and Hawthorn. This is such a see what the teams look like before making player prop bets is my I think.
All right. Happy to roll
Do you
with that,
agree?
Billy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No problem.
Okay, great. Okay. Port Adelaide, Melbourne. Talking the other team there, Melbourne's a lot to play for. Port's 4.25. Melbourne's $1.23. The line's 28.5 over at Adelaide Oval.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you talk about changes in style, Wally, just in recent times, and we know that Port earlier in the season were like basically very stingy. Well, if you just isolate the last 5 games, Port are now conceding the most disposals in the AFL, 402 over the last 5 games. And so they haven't really been able to sustain that pressure and that style that they had earlier in the year. And fair enough, there's big personnel out for Port basically. So it's been a bit of a tough run for them. But it probably gives us a good opportunity to find a few bets. Obviously, I like Melbourne to win. Just with the way they're playing, they're sensational, and even away from home, they should be winning. And then it's obviously, do you want to follow up and back them at the line? This percentage isn't a big player for Melbourne, so yeah, but they seem to be just the sort of side who would just play. They just play right to the whistle anyway. So I don't know, but definitely happy to have them in a multi just to win, just with that motivational multi. Then, outside of that, the total points is getting up there a little bit high for a Port game, 182.5. So, but we did see the Swannies obviously blow them away on the weekend. Just want to double check if that went over. Actually, I think it did because it was like a 12 goal. Oh yeah, 230 something points. Yeah. It was the first quarter. I think was a little bit low. 6 goals, and then Sydney kicked 9 in the second and 10 in the last.
Right.
Yeah. And so who are we looking at for the D's, mate? I tell you who I loved his game on the weekend was Harrison Petty. He was sensational, Wally. Now, he's $2.05 to kick 2 goals here against Port, who have they've got a weak and key defence, don't they? They've got like a 19-year-old playing fullback at the moment. And he's kicked, and look, probably, and we backed Kerno, didn't we, to kick 5 on the weekend. That was good. But he had Aaliyah, who's better than the kid. Now, Van Ruin's probably going to get Aaliyah.
Absolutely.
Harrison Petty's kicked 3, 3, and 4 his last 3 games. And before his 3 games before that, he's kicked 2, 2, and 2, and he's $2.05 here to kick 2. Love that one.
Yep.
Oh no, he's too. Oh no, hang on, it's just shifted. Right, he's now. I was looking at the double. Sorry, I was looking at the double one. He's so at double, he's $2 if you have him in a picker basically, but he's $1.60 to kick 2, which he's done in his last 6 games.
Yep.
But you can still get $3 for him to kick 3, which he's done in his last 3 games.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
And you're getting $3. So
great.
There's another guy who I've noticed sneaking. Oh, his odds have been crushed now. But Chandler's another guy, so he's actually good odds for. He's $1.77 to kick one. Well, he's done that in 13 of his 20 games anyway. So he's a good chance. Harvey Langford as well. He's $1.80 to kick one, and he's done that in 14 of 21 games. If we think that the D's are going to have a decent score here, a lot of these guys look like they're good value. From a disposal point of view, like Sparrow, his line's 24.5. Now, he hasn't been below 24 in his last 9 games. So, I mean, that looks like it's good value considering he's now playing the team who's giving up the most disposals. They're not tagging, so that straight away brings Cosy Pickett into play, and his line's 24.5. He's doing really well, Cos. This guy annoyed me on the weekend because we backed him the week before and he got 17, and then he comes out and gets 34 against the Swans. That's Jace Burgoyne. He's frustrating. Apart from that, Wally, I think we're onto a few there. So happy to stick with it.
Yeah, you can build disposal multis around Melbourne players with the confidence of that stat. The last 5 weeks, they've gone well. Now Sunday games, as we know, it's a lot harder to go into too much detail because there's so much time between now and then in terms of the player bets. But overarching, we start with GWS West Coast. The Giants here, understandably short favourites at $1.14. I think they are, Harro. West Coast $5.75. The line's 33.5 points.
Yeah. Is there a bit of weather in play in this one? Let's just quickly. And it's in Sydney, right?
Yep.
1 to 7 mil.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that because that could dictate how you want to go about your total points as well. So, but I mean, GWS technically they can, still make the finals. It relies on obviously Carlton losing both of their last 2 games, St Kilda not winning both of their last 2 games, and making up a little bit of percentage. But I just don't have any faith in the Giants if they're, going to run this out to the line. They've been awfully disappointing, I think. And look, you've got to give them some leeway with the amount of injuries that they've had this year have been absolutely cruel. Now, West Coast, I was very disappointed with them on the weekend. Collingwood took over a team that wasn't super dissimilar to them in terms of experience. So Collingwood went over with 10 players under 50 games, and that's what West Coast had as well, and at home, and they still couldn't get it done. So they were a bit disappointing, I thought, West Coast. But here they play, a lesser opponent. Yes, they're travelling, but getting a 33-point start, I'd probably lean to West Coast, but I don't have it's not something I may not even probably back it. But if you wanted to have a bet, that's where I'll be leaning. Few other areas, well, now the Giants, they do keep defender ball user types on the lower side. Now with West Coast, obviously this Herbert had been going gangbusters. But what happened on the weekend was they brought back in 2 other defender ball users as well, in Lindsay and Baker, and they both ate into his sort of play for a bit, and that caused him to go under. So he's a guy I'm probably, given the opponent, you could probably oppose him at 23.5. And then outside of that, like, who else are we looking at here? I've been a little bit cautious of Oliver, who had a better game on the weekend, but he's not. They've kind of thrust him back into the midfield in a big way because I think the style of the game was being played in. But he's been getting moved around a little bit. Toby Green came back in and he had his 18 disposals, and he only played the 30% midfield, so I think they're going to keep him forward more often than not. Outside of that, mate, I don't have heaps for us on this one. It's a bit of a tricky one.
All right, next game on the Sunday, Harro. Western Bulldogs, Carlton. This is a huge one. It's that feature game in the middle of the Sunday Arvo on free-to-air TV. Western Bulldogs are $2.53. Carlton, $1.52 favourites. The line is a couple of goals. Lot to play for.
Yeah. So this one, Western Bulldogs are a little bit like Collingwood. They're basically locked in to either finishing as high as 7th or as low as 10th. And really, it looks like it's not going to actually. Really, they could get to 8th because I don't think the Cats are.
Yeah, but the thing is that if
Yeah,
they're 9th or 8th, they avoid. If they're 10th, there's every chance they've got to go to Adelaide.
yeah, potentially. But I think the Dogs are going to prioritise trying to be
Yeah, just make it.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to just try and be as good as they can, and they'll finish where they finish, somewhere in that
Yep.
7 to 10. And I don't think it's going to make a huge difference where they finish in that 7 to 10. So obviously Carlton, this is obviously last week was a massive game against St Kilda, but this is they win this, and then Carlton can do whatever they want in the last round against Freo. It may give Carlton the opportunity to freshen some guys up before they go into a wild card. So Carlton, everything to play for. Regardless of that, their form is so much better than the Doggies anyway. And so, I mean, Carlton opened up at 3.5. Well done to punters who jumped on that because that was just superb value. Now I think they're out to 11.5, and I still like it. So happy to be with the Baggers, mate. Outside of that, like we look at player bets. Now the Dogs have been conceding a lot more possessions than they have in their longer history. Like they're 4th in the AFL over the last 5 rounds. And then, against, like in 2026 altogether, they're conceding 388 disposals, AFL number 2. So, and Carlton, mate, Carlton have really flipped it since Fraser came on board. So if you look at the last 10 games, Carlton is second on the disposal ladder, nearly averaging almost 400. So it's a really good matchup here for Carlton and their disposals. And so who are we going to find here, mate? We know that the Doggies don't tag. Sammy Walsh, 27.5. He's going to be pretty hard to stop. Paddy Cripps is actually, his line's dropped right down now. So he's at 25.5. He got 29 against the Dogs last time. And so he's going to be right in the thick of the action. I'd be interested to see if Cherrett misses, because that could give another defender ball user for Carlton a bit more of a opportunity. But like Florent, who's in really good form now, his line is 23.5. He's over that in all of his last 4 games. And I think he's really flourishing with Nick Newman not being there. So there's a little bit more ball getting directed through him. So, yeah, sort of focusing on the Carlton disposals. Blake Acres was a guy we had a good bet on the weekend as well. Doggies are conceding number 3 to wingers at the moment, and he needs 20. Since he's come back into the side, he's done that in 6 out of his 8 games anyway. So I'll tell you who not to back, Libba. I don't know what Bevo was thinking, but he played with Libba out on a wing on the weekend. Caught us all by surprise. And he obviously had the 15, so just steer clear of him. But Carlton disposals should be, as we say, a bit of a party for them this weekend.
Awesome, mate. Last game is Essendon v Sydney. Things don't get any easier for the Bombers. They're $15. I mean, Sydney's $1.02. The line is 60.5.
Yeah. Oh, it's just tough to get involved in a line like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
If anything, I'm not getting involved.
It's also tough to get involved. Like Sydney they're not going to chase down Freo. As long as they get the win, Hawthorn can't overtake them. Like, where's their motivation, Harro? They're just going to, surely this is a rock up, get the points, go home. Make sure, you put players on ice. Like, this for me, and I might be wrong, is just the biggest no-bet game outside of Charlie Curnow, because he's playing on a ground he has dominated before against an average back on, and the Coleman is on the line. So for me, this is Charlie Curnow goals and nothing else.
Yep, let me just have a look at what his goals are. And obviously, we'll probably be looking at even money from the 4, I'm going to guess. That's spot on. So, yeah, Charlie's $2 to pick 4. Pretty hard to see him not doing it, though. Unless it's just the Swans don't really care at all. But there's one other way you could play this ball, and we saw the Swannies put Heaney, Curnow, Mills, and Hackley, I think was the other guy. So those 4 guys didn't play basically. Oh, no, Chad Warner. They didn't play the last 20 minutes of the game on the weekend against Port. Now, you will get a 15-point start for Essendon in the last quarter if you just want to have a last quarter line. That's probably reasonable. That's probably not a bad way to play that. Just given that, Swannies are likely to put their stars on ice again. And Essendon, there's no reason why they won't try and play the game out. They're just looking to develop. One guy I do want to give a mention to from Essendon, because I've got plenty of Dons fans who listen to the show. Dyson Sharp.
Yeah.
Now, we have followed him, and we've backed him quite a lot, and he's been very good to us all. So his line is 20.5. He's over that in all of his last 4 games, including last week. He had a career high 27 disposals. So he's a guy who just, he just looks like the type of player who's going to show up for you every week.
Yeah.
So he, if you want to find a bet on an Essendon guy, who's got he's going to be a bit of the future of that club, I reckon. Not that he's like an outstanding player, but he just looks like a really reliable guy who's going to show up for you. So, that's one for us.
Yep, love it. All right, mate. That'll do us for this week. I'm just going to need the best bet of the round.
Look, Wally, we're going to go back to the well and back the team that's got, the second best profile in the last 10 weeks, and that's the Blues to get the Doggies. I wish we had been able to do the show yesterday. We would have got -3.5, but we're just going to have to take the -11.5 and
done.
Cheer on the Baggers again on a Sunday either.
There you go. All right, Harry, been great as always, mate. Have a fantastic rest of the week. Good luck to your Baggers on securing a wildcard spot. I think that them v Collingwood's what we're all after, and we'll see you next week, mate.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.